Gallina and Brad Borders.
Well, we're back.
Good morning.
Good morning. Boy, I got some kind of deep thing in my ear right there, man. That was impressive. Wow. And hey, welcome to
modulation.
A little modulation, right? Yeah. I sound like an Autobot.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. You can find more about us at phhusa.org. We take care of veterans every day all across the country, helping them with housing issues through safety and accessibility renovations and solving veteran homelessness. So welcome. Good to see you this morning.
It is good to be here. I was kind of not sure about whether I should come straggling in a little late with my head hung down. I mean, our guest of two drunk guys in a gun room, I wasn't real sure. And
were you going to pretend like you were hungover?
Well, I thought about really coming in hungover, but I didn't know how the show would go. I was afraid that Devin, might blow my eardrums out.
Well, there's 100% chance of that. Hungover on a Monday, on a Tuesday morning. That's going into the area of problematic behavior.
I got to say, I haven't been hungover in well over 20 years.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. We do have a past.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good to see you this morning. It's great to be here, and glad everybody's joining in this morning. We have the Devil Dog with us, and so he's here. He'll be sharing the project of the week. He's been on a secret mission.
He has. Well, it wasn't so secret. Everybody from here to Florida heard him.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Stealth is not in the Marine Corps dictionary.
And he's our latest TikTok star.
He is a TikTok star. I'm gonna tell you, he's
got some serious dance moves for TikTok.
Not only the dance moves, but he's got some real serious talent that's coming alongside him.
Serious talent coming alongside him, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, when you get the old crusty Army sergeant, that's your co-star.
Yeah. What was the restaurant?
Viral.
What was the restaurant that you said you were going to take Rob to down in Florida when you guys went? There was salty dogs.
Salty dog.
Yeah, Rob Harrell is a salty dog.
He certainly is
very salty.
We'll have to get Rob on the show.
Absolutely. 100% chance of that.
Yeah.
Rob has to be on the show.
But I think after 24 hours in a truck with Devin, his request will be that Devin's not in studio.
We should have him on. We should put him and Devin in a truck, let him drive around for 24 hours, and then have him on the show immediately after that.
Oh, that would be a good
Now,
show.
that would be one
would be
salty show. That would be fantastic. So,
Yeah.
Hey, welcome, everybody. We got a great show for you. Hey, my friend Dunn is on with us all the way from Missouri. And Don and his buddy Doug, they have a podcast that they do called Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room, and they literally film it from a gun room. And so when you're on with them, you can see all these guns, and it is a fantastic place to talk about veterans.
So the gun room kind of fits with the Show Me State. I'm curious, are you drunk while you're doing the show?
It has happened.
Okay. You're Army then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But now let's remember. Now people can't be drunk on the air on a radio station like WSIC, like where we're at.
But you can do whatever you want on podcasts.
On podcasts, you can do whatever you want. You can't do that. You can't be. The FCC will come and fine you or something.
You can say whatever words you want too. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you say online. It's
right. Online. But we if you do that here, we've got a thing that stops people from saying words that they shouldn't say.
That's exactly
right. What is
that,
Isaiah? Don't you have a thing? The beep's gone?
I wasn't ready.
Oh, he wasn't.
He wasn't ready.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So,
I think you guys solved that
there it is.
with the early mornings.
Last week we had a little bout with the beeps, and we decided we were going to beep John out of everything. And so, hey, well, it's great to have everybody here. Hey, good morning, good day, Don, to you and your compadre Doug couldn't be here this morning, but we're grateful that you got up a little bit early this morning and joined us today. And so, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, glad to have you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how your show got started.
So our show got started from us wanting to get more involved with veterans. We were going to the local VFW, and it wasn't enough for what we wanted to do. myself, I retired out of the Army in 2014, and Doug was actually my first sergeant while we were in. We did a couple tours together in Iraq, and when I got out, I opened up my own trucking company, and then life kind of took over, and he offered me a position here in Missouri, and so I moved back here to help take care of my mom, and started working with Doug again after the military.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So just let's. What was it that made you? How many years did you serve in the Army?
I did 20.
Okay. All right. And so what? Let's take us back. 20 years before that. So I guess around 1993, 94. You kind of looked around and said, "Hey, I think I need to do something." Why did you join the Army?
Well, I got married right out of high school, and I was looking for something to help take care of my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into the military in '94, and that was the primary reason, was just responsibilities.
Yeah.
The workforce wasn't that great for a high school graduate in that area,
Yeah. So where'd you do your basic training at?
Fort Jackson.
Oh,
Did,
lovely, Fort Jackson.
Basic and AIT.
The garden spot of the military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than the armpit down in Louisiana.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to believe.
So
There's something better.
Believe me, there's always something better in the Army.
So I served for 3 years at Fort Jackson as a battalion chaplain there, and people would ask me, like, "Hey, what's it like being a chaplain at basic training?" And I was like, "It's like youth ministry, but with guns." Everybody, all the kids are like 19 years old, and everybody's scared. And back when I was a battalion chaplain, this was early 2000s. The whole kinder, gentler world of the Army was not in play yet, and so drill sergeants were fairly robust in their instruction at times. And so what would happen is on Sunday mornings there would be this line of kids at the door of my office, right? That, like 50 of them waiting to see me, and here was the conversation was. Chaplain, I don't believe that God wants me to be in the Army, right? And it was that, like, literally just hit rewind and repeat every kid that came in. And it would be hours. I would be there hours listening to the same conversation. So what had happened was there must have been like this underground railroad of information over at the reception battalion where all the kids would be like, if you want to get out of the Army, go see the chaplain. He can get you out, right? So I don't know how to get people out of the Army. I have no idea how to get people out of the Army. And so I developed a briefing slide after weeks and weeks and weeks of this line of long, kids just lamenting the fact that they had joined the Army. And so I developed this briefing slide for the newcomers brief, and it had just a very simple slide, and it would fly in these words. It would go, the chaplain, and then I would make everybody repeat it, right? And I would go, okay, repeat after me. And they would go, the chaplain. And then the next word would fly in, cannot get me out of the Army, right? And they would all say that in unison. And then I would grab one soldier and I would go, hey, soldier, what does that mean? And he would stand up, well, sir, means you can't get me out of the Army. I said, exactly. Exactly. And the line at my door dwindled down considerably to just the kids who actually needed help.
So I went through basic training in 1996, and what we would do is if you went to chapel, then the drill sergeants would leave you alone.
That's right.
And so that's where you went to escape the drill sergeants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me tell you another funny thing. So
take a nap. That's right.
So, Don, I don't know if you ever went to chapel when you were basic training, but my service was in the Fort Jackson movie theater.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Because we didn't have a chapel. My unit didn't have a chapel building, right? Oh, wow. And so we had 500 people in our service, and I thought everybody wanted to be there.
Well, let's hope 500 people come back after break to hear the rest of these stories.
Yeah.
We are. Wait a minute.
We do not have a break. We had just music rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My timing is all wrong today. I apologize. I apologize. I'm so sorry.
I
Well,
labored.
apparently it's off for a good reason because the clock says it's 8:45,
Yeah,
and it
that's
is
right,
not
it is not.
8:45.
Well, I labored under the
It's
notion
okay.
that I was this
We're gonna have to
amazing.
talk with management.
Like,
That's it. It's not leap year. I'm just completely blown out of whack here.
Hey, Brett, I'm curious. How did the doctors and the medics treat you after you put up that slide? Because I'm sure their lines got huge.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I guarantee that.
Oh my God.
Well, it was funny because we had all of these kids coming into these chapel services, and I was laboring under the impression that I was like the Billy Graham of the chaplain corps, right?
You are not.
And like, I was just on it, man, and I was, anointed, and I had the unction, and as it turns out, they just wanted to get away from the drill.
Well, I mean, you
sergeant.
could have played that up. You could have told them, they need to pray 5 times. They need to come back next week. You could have just kept them coming
man.
back.
I did, man. I did.
Yeah.
I did. I ran into. Well, it's funny. So when I was down at Fort Bragg at 3rd Special Forces Group, I was stuck in the S3 shop working while the battalion was downrange, and there was an E6 that was working in there with me, a Green Beret, and his name was Doug. Right. And we got to talk, and I was like, hey, where'd you do your basic training? He was like, oh, Fort Jackson. I said, what was your MOS before you became a Green Beret? Oh, I was a 63 Bravo, a light wheel vehicle mechanic. And I was like, awesome. And I was like, when were you at Fort Jackson? He gave me the time frame. Well, I knew that I was there then. And I was like, what battalion were you in? He was like, well, I don't remember the battalion, but I remember my drill sergeants. And he started listing off names, right? And I was like, oh, I knew those guys, right? I remembered their names. And I was like, let me ask you this. Did you ever go to your chapel service? He was like, yeah, I went 1 or 2 times. He said, but man, our chaplain was really long-winded.
I know that guy.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
I
man,
know him.
I was your chaplain, man. He was like, you were. So, a little humble pie, right? Right?
Sermons got briefer.
That was
So-
when I realized I wasn't the Billy Graham of the chaplain corps. So.
So Don, tell us a funny story about your time in service. Tell us a little bit about your service.
So I did all but 1 year in combat arms. So I did 10 years with the special ops community, and the rest was split between infantry and patriot. I think a funny situation that I encountered in the Army would probably have to be while I was at Fort Stewart. It was kind of towards the end of my career, and we had a company commander. He got in trouble with the way he was treating some of the female soldiers, and so his battalion commander, trying to fix the problem, gave him some extra duty, and he had to interview every single soldier, and then report back to him and tell him what he learned about his soldiers. Well, I had this one soldier named Private Thompson, and he's exactly what you were describing, Brad. He was looking for any way possible to get out of the Army. The first day he showed up, he flat out told me, I don't like the Army. Can you get me out?
It's like right off the bat, day one, he was like, done.
Yeah, day one.
That
and he
amazes
came
me. straight
straight from AIT, and he came with a note from AIT that said the soldier needs to take a PT test because he has not passed his PT test yet. But they still sent him. So
They must have really wanted to get rid of him.
yeah, well, the commander calls him in to do an interview, and I'm up there with him, and the commander says, "Private Thompson, why'd you join the military?" And he said, "Call of Duty, sir." And the commander goes, I get that, your parents probably served and you got family members and you felt that urgency to join the military. And I looked at the commander and I looked at this kid. This kid had this real baffled look on, like, what are you talking about? And I I said,
Don,
sir,
I'm gonna have to interrupt you here. We've got to go to a break, and so this is a great place to stop. You want to hear more about the Call of Duty? Come back after these short messages from our sponsors.
So we can say whatever we
Every
want,
on my
just like
page
the
is
Drunk
used to my
Guys
links not
podcast.
working.
Okay. All right. So we are live on Facebook.
Oh, we are.
okay.
That's great.
For now.
Okay. So you went to your basic at Fort Jackson. What was your enlistment MOS?
I was a heavy wheel vehicle mechanic.
Okay. So
until they
what's
got rid of
that?
it.
63 Sierra?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. I went to 63 Bravo School myself at Fort Jackson, and
Was
then
he an Alpha Gator?
I'm not sure Alpha Gator. What is that?
Is that was the companies? They had Alpha Gators and
Oh,
Charlie
no.
Charlie Rocks were the
Well,
Sierras.
it's Charlie Rocks.
Okay.
We were. So the school itself was right on 77, right?
Yeah,
The classroom buildings, and so
Yeah.
we were 2 blocks, 2 streets up on the barracks right in front of our school. That's about the most that I remember. Everything else I remember come from 5 Points and hitching taxi cabs to Richburg Road, where my friends would pick me up and take me back to Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we would get a weekend pass,
It's so hot down there.
I would skip out and go home.
It was so hot. It was so absolutely hot. I got up one morning, missing. I was late for a road march. Got up, went to the bathroom, and woke up on my floor, face down on my floor, and there was this liquid everywhere. Flicked on the light, it was blood all over my face. I looked like Ric Flair and Harley Race from a 1979 wrestling match in Charlotte. And I called one of my drill sergeants. I was like, "I've had an aneurysm. My face exploded." Right. And my drill sergeant, who was a medic, came over, and he came in. He was like, "Holy bleep, Chaplain, what the heck have you done?" Right, blood all over the floor. After I gone in the bathroom, I had fainted, and I fell like a tree, face first into the floor. So they took me to the hospital. I was 41 or 42 at the time, and the doctor did a scan on me. He was like, "Yeah, you're all right. Well, what happened?" I told him. He was like, "Yeah, your blood pressure dropped. You got to be careful when you're old.
10
when
seconds.
you get up in the morning
10
and
seconds.
don't." Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I've got.
And we are here with our special guest. It's 2 dudes and a gun room, but we got 2 drunk dudes in a gun room,
Right.
but we got only one not drunk dude,
Not drunk
and he's
and
not in a gun
not
room.
in a gun room today.
And I got some really cool stories, and so we're really interested in hearing more about the Call of Duty. And we've also got Devil Dog Devin here
Devlin.
with us, and he is going to share Project of the Week.
Yeah.
Hoorah!
Yeah. Good. Well, that was very tame.
I'm trying a new thing.
It sounded like a Marine ballerina saying "hoorah."
What is going on? Yeah.
I'm like, not
Well,
sure.
hello. Is that better?
There you go.
So, hey, yeah, real
It
quick.
was so elegant.
Hoorah!
The kinder, gentler
The
Marine
kinder,
Corps.
gentler. You mentioned my secret mission earlier.
Yes.
So poor Rob. He had to be with 5 Marines in a fish camp, and it was actually a nicer fish restaurant down there in Sarasota. And one of the Marines decided that he was just going to break out into the Marine Corps hymn. So you got 5 Marines singing
that
at the
go?
top of.
How's that
Would
song
you
go?
like no?
No.
You know, if I start, I can't stop
Yeah,
to the
that's
end.
right,
It's nobody stopped us from singing, because who's going to tell 5 Marines to stop singing the Marine Corps
That's
hymn?
right,
It's
yeah.
no one.
Poor Rob, the Army veteran, sitting there going, "Oh my
poor
gosh."
fella.
He took the whole week off.
He did.
This week?
Yeah, he's got the whole week off.
He's
got the whole week
exhausted.
off. Exhausted. Yeah.
One caveat: he did say that he wanted 10 minutes of silence every hour.
Yes.
I got to 7 one time, and he broke the silence to say, You did a crappy job cleaning the windshield.
Now, wait a minute. At one point, as I understand why y'all were in this 34-foot box truck driving to Bradenton, Florida to go put a ramp on for a veteran, he locked you in the back of the truck.
Well, yeah.
At least that's what the video showed.
I shouldn't have laughed at him.
Any Army guy that is so willing to lock a Marine in the back of a truck and video film it for proof,
What was
he
the,
had to have been angry.
What was the passcode to get out of the locked cargo bay of the 30?
I think it was a
truck?
10-minute waiting period.
Yeah, and Rob's outside going goose faba.
Yeah, he was just out there smoking his cigarette until he could calm down. So, I assume. I don't know. I'm in there in the dark with.
Well, those of you that don't know Rob is our production director, and he has been all over the country serving veterans. He was most affectionately known on the Woody and Wilcox show as
Heart Attack Rob.
Heart Attack Rob.
Yeah, so we were flying to Alaska to help some veterans up there, and my wife, Mrs. Giggles, and I were with Rob on the same flight, and evidently he wasn't feeling well, and the next day we had to take him to the hospital. It turns out he had a heart attack on the airplane, and William Wilcox flew up from Charlotte, and we had this big thing in Anchorage at this restaurant. But they had been talking about him on the radio about Rob having a heart attack. I mean, it was a serious situation.
Well, we wasn't
it was
talking about it on the radio, but the entire flight up that myself and Parker and Woody and Wilcox, our wives, we were all flying up together, and that was like the conversation the entire way.
Yeah, I mean, it
like
was
every stop.
It was super serious. I mean, we were literally worried about his health. Fortunately, we had a great doctor, took care of him, got a stent in him in Fairbanks, but through the conversation on the radio show, people began to call him. He began to call him Heart Attack Rob.
A mass following started showing up everywhere Rob would go.
Yeah.
Like when we would go
hey,
to
you're
a
Heart
restaurant.
Attack Rob.
Yeah.
And then he'd go, oh man.
Yeah.
And Rob's still kicking. Right?
He's still
he's still kicking.
Still kicking like an old mule.
Yeah, like an old mule. And he is salty.
Yeah.
So
he is salty.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear more from our guests. So let's get on with it.
Yes. Let's talk about the project of the week. We'll talk about the Sarasota project in 2 weeks when we have our special guest, Bill Sturbinski.
Say that 7 times.
Yeah,
fast.
I can.
Yeah.
So this week we're going to talk about Richard up in Ohio. Our Northeast Ohio chapter found this Vietnam veteran. He's an actual Purple Heart recipient, caught some shrapnel in Vietnam, came back home, and he's a devil dog like myself. Well, his house, hoorah. His house was built in the 1960s. I'm never going to leave that one down.
Yeah.
His house was built in the 1960s, and it just needs a little care. And he's painted it twice throughout the years. Painting's a really one of those things that you have to do because it protects your house against weather and vermin and all sorts of things. Well, bugs.
Right, okay.
Bugs.
Right.
Yeah,
Great word, by the way.
Vermin.
Man, your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I knew like 3 words.
So are vermin kin to varmin?
Vermin and varmint?
Anyways, so the veteran, he just can't paint the house anymore. He's 75 years young, living with his wife, and all he wants to do is make sure that his house is ready in case something were to happen for his. He's not around to take care of it anymore. And the Northeast Ohio chapter came through for him, and they got him some new vinyl siding, so he never has to paint that thing ever again.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
now he's gotten taken care of, and he was so thankful and just talked about how giving and amazing those people in that chapter were. And so I cannot thank the Northeast Ohio chapter enough. If you want to help out a veteran in your area, go to phhusa.org. We're everywhere. We're trying to help veterans wherever you are.
All right.
Thanks, Devil Dog.
Well, the Ohio chapter, the one thing that I love about them, they've been with us for a long time.
They have.
Since almost the beginning of the chapter movement. I mean, one of the first 2 or 3 chapters, I'm sure. And but they are consistently helping veterans in that area. And Northeast Ohio, for those that don't know, that's the Cleveland area. There's some places there that are run down, and veterans are living in bad states. So,
it's a very patriotic community.
Yeah.
There are a lot of elder veterans that live there in that general area, and in the process, it's relatively impoverished, and so there's a lot of need up there. The mayor reached out to us after seeing us on a television show, and then turned around and contacted us, said, hey, we need Purple Heart homes in our community. And so we went up there, we did a couple of projects, and all the volunteers said, hey, we want to continue to do this. They started a chapter, and they have been killing it ever since.
Was it John Keating?
John Keating's the current president. Yep.
Colonel Schwackenwald.
Yep.
Right? Isn't that a cool name?
Yeah.
He was a
I'm not
colonel.
gonna try
Yeah,
to
he was
say
a colonel.
that.
When I see him, he's Colonel Schwackenwald.
I always wondered if he moved over from Germany.
I don't know, but that's you can't deny that that's a German name.
yeah.
Schwackenwald.
Yeah,
Right?
really cool guy. He was
Say
in
that in
charge of
context.
Army logistics.
Nice.
And so all the supply chain for North America, he was over all their supply chain stuff. He's a great guy.
It
Really
was
great
called
guy.
Operation Schwackenwald.
Better than Operation Sham Shield, right?
Yeah,
The
that's right.
An Army relocation plan.
Or Operation Hoorah.
I love it.
Or Operation Vermin.
All right, so let's get back to our guest here, Don. Don, you were telling us before the break about your funny story. This young private joins the military, goes through basic and
Had the
his
Call of
advanced
Duty, no
training,
doubt.
and
Yeah.
he's talking to you and the commander while the commander's doing an interview as to why he joined the military, and his answer was the Call of Duty. And so,
Yeah, pick up from there.
So the commander tells him, I get that, the sense of urgency to do something for your country. Your family members probably served, and Private Thompson, he had that look on his face like, what are you talking about? And I looked at the commander. I said, sir, I'm pretty sure he's talking about the video game. And the soldier looked at him and said, yes, sir. I thought the Army was like the video game Call of Duty, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not at all.
Can you kick me out?
Yeah. There's no respawn in the real Army.
and it's dirty,
Yeah,
and
it's dirty.
sweaty, and
Yeah.
hot,
And in the
cold,
in Call of Duty, you can fancy yourself as a cool guy operator type
Right.
when you're probably going to be picking up trash and make sure that the area is policed and being dirty and grubby and eating bad food.
Yeah.
So awesome.
So I'm just curious: did that soldier get to stay in, or did he get his wishes and get kicked out?
He ended up getting his wish. I had to wait till after the 18-month period. That was a time where legal was getting really involved in making sure that the soldiers at least did 18 months.
Yeah.
Due to the cost of training and everything that they put him through. He ended up getting in trouble for a sexual assault case. So
Oh well, that'll get you out. That's
Yep.
one way to get out. Yeah.
he found his way.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. Some people, especially young people, ruin their lives not understanding how that sticks with you.
Yeah.
that it's
I had a soldier, one of my soldiers, and he was continually at my office wanting to get out. And so finally I just got tired of him, and I said, look, man, I'll give you the secret sauce. If you want to get out of the Army, refuse to train. Right? In basic training, if you refuse to train, you don't complete your modules, you don't make it through the phases. And he was like, really? I can do that? And I was like, yeah, it's going to be miserable. And they're going to put you on every, poo-poo detail that you can think of. And, oh, by the way, they're going to keep you here administratively, and all your buddies are going to graduate, and you're going to be standing around looking at everybody. And he was like, okay, I think I can do that. And I was like, God, I thought I was trying to talk him out of it, right?
sorry excuse for human
So I
being
would
there.
see him, and I would go to PT, and he'd be over there guarding the rifles, right? And I was like, oh, there's Sawyer, man, there's Sawyer, and the drill sergeant's like, yeah, that guy's he's a waste of good air, And anyhow, life went on. He disappeared, right? And then like 3 months later, I'm out in front of one of our barracks, and it was family day, so all the parents are coming. and I see this soldier walking down with his beret on. You get your beret, you get your black beret when you graduate, or you're close to graduation. He's walking with two civilian people, and he sees me, and he comes running across the field, Chaplain, Chaplain, and it was Sawyer. And I was like, what in the world? He was like, yeah, I got recycled and I ended up graduating. I was like, good for you, man. And then a year later, he called me. He had gone to work at full-time at NTC, right? So out in California. He called me. He was like, hey, Chaplain, how you doing? I was like, Sawyer, how's it going? Well, I'm on the side of the road out here in the desert in California. I got a flat tire, and I was just thinking about you. And I was like, why? Right? Why were you thinking about me? He was like, well, I'm just really glad to be in the Army. And even though I'm having a flat tire today, I just thought about you, and I just wanted to give you a call and say thanks for encouraging me while I was in basic training. I was like, bro, I told you how to get out, man. You're still in. You failed miserably.
But the lesson learned was that he did not like being miserable.
He did not
because
like
that
being
was a miserable existence for him.
Man,
no
what are you
doubt.
talking
Oh,
about? He
absolutely.
found out it was less miserable just to do
it.
just to follow the plan.
Yeah.
Right. So
That's the problem. That's the problem with most folks that get in and they just don't want to submit and allow themselves to be remolded and remade into a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm not sure how they train the Space Force yet.
Nope.
I don't know if they
Standard issue
maybe what
tinfoil
they
hat.
do is they take all of the oxygen deprived Marines and they send them into an oxygen tank.
And then somebody goes, "Oorah!"
Well, until now, I had a different opinion. I always thought it was more like that movie Space Camp.
Right.
A bunch of kids walking around looking at rocks and
Yeah.
getting to experiment until one day finally they accidentally get shot to space.
Yeah.
Well, the odd thing for me is I've never seen, we've had the Space Force now for a couple of years, and I have yet to see a space cadet.
Yeah.
I don't.
I've been
Army.
around some. I've been around some space cadets.
Beyond that, did they get taken up by aliens?
I don't know.
I mean, is that now where the are they the ones flying
That's
the
where
UFOs?
that's
that
where
are
all the
getting shot
balloons are
down?
coming from.
That's
Yeah.
it. There's all the hot air in the balloons.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, on putting pieces back together, we solved problems. We just solved the balloon problem right there, man. We figured it out. It was Space Force. Yeah. So,
All right.
Hey, Don, tell us a little bit about. Tell me how many times did you go downrange?
So, counting Bosnia, I did a total of 68 months.
60. Yeah, that's a minute.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So on your dress uniform, you got those little gold stripes that go from your elbow to your wrist, basically. Yeah.
Which is one every 3 months.
6 months.
6 months. Yeah.
6
Yeah.
months. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm guessing Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan, all of the above.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
thanks for your
I only did a
service.
couple tours in Iraq. Most of it was Afghanistan and Bosnia.
okay. All right. Yeah. How about maybe we got a couple minutes before break, but what's a leadership lesson that you learned from folks that you served with?
The biggest thing that I learned, and I learned it really young as an E5, life gets a lot better if you learn to change your leadership style to meet the way the soldier learns.
Yeah.
You'll accomplish a lot more missions, and you'll have a lot more soldiers respect you when you can reach them in a way that they accept it versus treating everybody like you are the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket.
So
Yeah.
did you encourage your commander to start playing Call of Duty after that lesson?
I think actually him and the battalion commander later had a conversation, and it involved Doug as the first sergeant. And in the middle of a deployment, right before I retired, I got to watch him clear the Army as they chaptered him. First commander I ever seen get chaptered out of the military.
Oh wow!
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, he was relieved of duty in Afghanistan and sent back, and I'm not sure what he's doing now. Maybe he's with Sawyer.
Wow.
he might be with Sawyer.
I'm going to tell you what, NTC is probably one of the most miserable places you can find yourself.
Yeah, it's hot and dusty and not near anything. So,
And the only time it rains for like about 2 minutes, and then it just completely disappears.
and it rains mud. Hey, we're going to head to break. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Don from Two Drunk Guys in a Gun Room podcast.
We back live?
Yeah, we go.
All right. So, Don, tell us a little bit about one of your guests, or a little bit about your show. Who's your most interesting guest that you've had on the show?
So last week, I would say one of the most interesting interviews I did was with Scotty Hastings. He is a medically retired 11 Bravo. He was shot 10 times in Afghanistan.
Wow.
Received the Purple Heart. He is now out, and he is a recording artist for country music out of Nashville.
No kidding.
And he's the ambassador for Guitars for Vets.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah. Getting vets playing music. Yeah,
Yep.
because it's good for you. I just got my mom just gave me a mountain dulcimer for Christmas. And I've been learning how to play it. And I actually sent Rob, last night I was talking to him about you last night, Devin.
Gosh.
And I asked him if he had recovered from your trip. He actually said, I had a wonderful time. He did. He had a wonderful. So I played him a song on my dulcimer and recorded it and to soothe him.
You've been learning more than Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Oh yeah, man. I'm up
because
to
I've been learning my words in my song here.
Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
No, in 1814 we
Oh,
took
yeah,
a little trip.
Oh yeah.
Along with Colonel Jackson down to mighty Mississippi.
Oh, yes.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
You get your dulcimer. And
Well,
we're
I
gonna
don't.
do it.
I don't know how to
gosh.
play that yet. I haven't learned how to play that particular tune, but it's coming. That should be like that's going to be our Christmas episode.
Oh, okay.
We're going to have music. I should bring my mom in for Christmas
Yeah,
and let her
let's do
play
it.
the hammered dulcimer, which is incredible.
It's really
hear.
interesting you had mentioned the Guitars for Vets. Actually was contacted this week by a gentleman that's wanting some help to build a venue for recording, like a recording studio for veterans that play music as a part of therapy. And so it's a really big need, and there's a lot of interest out there for that. There's been a lot of great songs. You think about even songs like the Battle of New Orleans or Taps, songs of that nature were all written and sung by veterans.
Yeah,
soldiers.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So, yeah, we'll, hey, how long have you got? Oh, we're getting ready to go back live here in about 20 seconds. So we'll kind of jump into how the show got started, how long you guys been recording. I think you guys are up close to 100 episodes or something like that. But
We're right there at 100.
Okay.
We're on
5
season
seconds.
2.
Here we go.
We started
All right.
halfway through last year.
Here we go. Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Honest. You can find out more about what we do for veterans each and every day at phhusa.org. Find out how you can get involved and how you can help make veterans' lives better one home at a time. So we're joined today by our friend Don from out in Missouri. Him and his buddy Doug do a podcast out there called Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. And they're both Army veterans, multiple tours to Afghanistan and Iraq. They served together. And now what they do is they each week they spend their time talking to other veterans and other organizations that are interested in helping improve veterans' lives from a lot of different perspectives. And they have very interesting guests on. And we were just talking during the break about the guest from last week. And Don, if you share a little bit about who that guest was, right after you tell us how the podcast got started.
So me and Doug, when we decided we wanted to start doing more for veterans, the one thing we were good at was networking. So we started this podcast as basically kind of a hub. We wanted to take the small organizations out there that people don't hear a lot about, other than maybe right there in their own community. And we wanted to be a centrally located place for veterans to come to and say, hey, I got this problem, and they can go to our resources pages and find a program that can help, or they can reach out to us and just talk or whatever they need. And that's where the show started, you know. So we decided to start this podcast and just kind of start surrounding veterans with like-minded people, using veteran comedy and veteran related stories, and then throwing in some organizations to do the interviews with, and that's how it took off from there.
Expanding on perhaps the origination of the term "oorah."
Well, I'm waiting on the definition. Our Marine Paul is messaging us online that he's holding back the definition of what hua means.
You don't want that definition. I've heard it. No,
okay.
It's not safe for the radio.
I've actually done some research into that at one point in time, because when I first got in the Army, I kept hearing this. Everybody saying hua, hua, hua. And then when I moved to another unit over at Fort Bragg, that was a hua-free zone. You were forbidden from saying that, right? But it was the funniest thing when I first got to my officer basic course at the chaplain school. There was a guy there that was really hua. Right? You ever met somebody who's like super hua? I mean, this guy was like, he was so hua. He was hua every other hua word, right? And so, it's a bunch of chaplains, and so we're all getting ready to close out our day, and we would end every day, and we would join together, and we would pray together, right? And so somebody was like, hey, John, why don't you pray for us today? And he was like, okay, hua. Right, dear Lord, hua, thank you for this hua day. It's been so awesome to be studying how to be chaplains, hua. Right, and we thank you for all your goodness and blessings in this life, hua, and amen and hua. Right, and we all just lost it, man. I mean, we just lost. But that was just the way he talked, right? Hua just kept coming out of his mouth. So anyhow. I digress. Don, how long has the podcast been going now?
So we started, it was around April of last year.
Okay.
So we just started, we're doing our seasons by the calendar year. So we just started season 2. We're probably right around the 100 episode.
Yep.
So you're once a week?
Twice a week.
Twice a week.
Twice a week. Wow.
And where do people find you? How do they find your station?
So they can go to twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com, or same thing on Facebook. They can find us there on
Do you
Facebook.
have swag? Do you got like hats and T-shirts people can get?
I have ordered some T-shirts and stickers and stuff that I give out.
Okay, awesome. So,
I could just see the police officer coming up to you saying, "So, son, tell me about that bumper sticker. What you been drinking today, and what you holding?"
There's definitely one in my back window.
So why the gun room? I mean, why did you guys decide we got to do a podcast in a gun room?
So the name actually came from our interest.
Okay.
You know, me and Doug both like to have a couple beers, and Doug actually was starting a gun company. We do a lot of modifications and coatings for guns, and I helped Doug do that with doing some hydrographics, and so the gun room just kind of grew before we started the podcast.
Okay.
It was a place that we spent a lot of our time, and when we decided to do a podcast, there was no other place to do it but in the gun room.
Yeah, that's right. We'll just make this a gun room and a studio, and it'll be awesome. So, well, you were telling us during the break about one of your guests that you had on recently, and I'd love to hear more if you could just share that story with our listeners.
So Scotty Hastings was on our show last week. We did about an hour and a half interview with him. He has an amazing story. I mean, if after you listen to his story, if you are not motivated to take on the world, I'm not sure what can motivate you.
Right.
He was in Afghanistan. They were on a patrol, and he actually took fire and was shot 10 times.
My goodness.
He did live, and he came back to inspire other people. He's now a country music artist. He records out of Nashville, and he is the ambassador for Guitars for Vets. So, I mean, he spends just about every waking moment of his life helping veterans.
So Guitars for Vets, tell us a little bit about what they do.
So I actually am trying to get another interview with the organization, but primarily what they do is people that enroll through the VA is the way they kind of want people to enroll through. You will take you'll get put with a mentor. They'll give you guitar lessons, and you basically pick a song before you start, and the goal is after 10 lessons to get you playing that song.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And at the end of it, you get a guitar.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
I believe most of their guitars are donated by Gibson.
Oh, that is really neat. Yeah. So as you think back over your 100 or so episodes, tell us a little bit about some of the guests that you've had on that were super interesting.
So I actually had a coworker who was a veteran come on, and I love to tell this story because I've never heard this situation in all the firefights I have ever been in. So he's kind of like MC Hammer, like we were talking earlier. He's kind of a one-hit wonder. He's got one big story, and it is absolutely hilarious. They were in a firefight, and he was in the turret of a Humvee, and I don't know if he had Taco Bell the day before, but in the middle of a firefight, he yells down at the E4 that is inside the Humvee and says, "Hey, you're gonna have to take the gun. I got to go to the bathroom." he
There's
jumps
lots
down.
of jokes there, believe me. Lots of jokes
Absolutely. So he jumps out of the Humvee, and I guess they're commingled with the Iraqi police is kind of where they're defending. And he runs into the building and sees that the bathroom there is not clean. So he looks all the way out back, and there's a porta-john, I don't know, 50, 60 yards from where they're fighting. And he takes off running for the porta-john. And he takes off all of his gear. I mean, this is in the middle of a fire.
Was that a up armored? Is it an up armored porta-john?
I don't.
I can only imagine what the Iraqi sniper was thinking as the guy's stripping off all his gear and he's running to the porta-john.
These Americans, what is wrong with them?
He goes to get in the porta-john, and it's filled full of flies and everything else. So he shuts the door and he goes around to the back of the porta-john and goes to the bathroom outside. Right? He runs back to the Humvee and has the soldier get down. He gets back up in the turret, and the soldier's now down there by his feet. And the soldier looks at him and he goes, "Sir,
No.
what is all over your pants?"
That reminds me of Nick
Lavery's story. Yeah.
Hey,
So,
when the urge happens, the urge happens.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter when or where or what.
Yeah, bullets are flying. I got to go.
I think that's why the Army developed the MRE.
Absolutely.
It stops that problem from happening. If they just marketed it that way, this will solve all your logistical bathroom problems while you're in a firefight.
I think it was my last year on active duty. There was an email that went out asking for participants in a scientific study for people to enroll in this Army program where you would go for 60 days and your entire nutrition would come from MREs for 60 days to see what the effects of it were on the human body, right? Can you imagine? I mean, oh my God. For those of you who've just been in the field for 2 or 3 days, you know what happens.
Painful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is bad.
Very painful.
That is a great story. So in your 100 episodes, who was your favorite guest to have on?
I would say right now it was probably Scotty Hastings.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
that story is just tremendous.
So is his music out like on Spotify and things like that where people can go and listen to the stuff he's doing?
Absolutely. He's got a song out there called The Stories That They Tell. And it's all over the internet. They can find it. So actually one of the new projects that we just started, and I hope to be fully up and running by May 1st, but I'm putting together an online radio station for veterans only. So if you're a veteran or the son and daughter of a veteran and you're a podcaster, a musician or whatever, I'm trying to put a place together for them to get their stuff out on the radio and just to help network and get them known to help them out. And
That's really
Scotty's
cool.
one of the people he was one of the first people to actually sign up. So.
Oh, that's awesome,
Yeah,
man.
reminds me of DV Radio too.
Yeah, for you familiar
Yeah.
with the guys from DV Radio? Have you ever
I'm
connected
not.
with them? I'll connect you up with Scotty Pig is one of the guys' names, and where his nickname is Oink, and they have something similar, and they do a live broadcast every Saturday night, and it's called Barracks Talk, and it is not FCC regulated.
One of the things that always amazes me, and just having listened to some of your podcasts, and hearing and understanding the idea of what your first experience was going to the VFW after you come home, very much similar, to the experience that I had. That you see, a bunch of guys that are more concerned with their poker table and their bingo table and their next drink than they are with serving other veterans. And so whether it's the work that you and Top are doing there, whether it's the work that we're doing here at Purple Heart Homes or DV Radio, it's all service oriented. It's all supporting other veterans, helping get the word out that there's resources, to help combat against suicide, to combat against homelessness, all the issues that plague combat veterans. And I'll say veterans, even that enlisted because they played a video game.
That's right.
And it was and for some people, I've shared this a number of times. Brad and I talk about it all the time. Post-traumatic stress is different for everybody.
It is.
And somebody that, had this, life of, genteel society, and they were playing video games, and then they joined the military, and they met a real drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Then suddenly that could be traumatic for some people.
Yeah.
Right. For some people, it might be loading, tanks onto a rail car.
Yeah.
To some, it might be going to combat. To some, it might be holding their battle buddy in their arms that's dying.
Yeah.
I mean, so you got all this vast array of experiences, but it's coming together through opportunities like what you guys have in order to be able to share those experiences, connect with people. That makes a difference in veterans' lives. And so thank you for the work that you're doing. And it sounds really cool that you're putting this station together. So
yeah. So what do you guys what do you see it going 5 years from now? What do you want to be seeing for the podcast and what you're doing for veterans out in the Midwest?
If it helps a veteran get to where he's doing his love and passion full time,
Yeah.
I call it a success.
Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
That's really the only goals that I have for it is that it helps a veteran get to a place. It allows podcasters to have a platform to just talk about what's on their mind.
So you're saying that me harassing Chap here 24/7, if that's my passion, I can count myself as successful.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I have found my new passion. Well, on Valentine's Day, I tried to.
Let's just not go back.
Tell you were my sweetheart.
Talk about PTS, man. Oh my gosh. Man. I am still struggling with that, man.
Come on, Buttercup.
Oh, have mercy. Hey, so we're winding down the show here. We got about a minute until we close. Don, please give our best to Doug, and hope he's doing well. And we really appreciate you guys for being on today. And we want so folks, if you're out there listening, you want to hear somebody else talking about veterans issues and doing a really good job of that, go out and find Two Drunks in a Gun Room wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify and Apple and all those other places. And so and support these guys and what they're doing. And we really look forward to the radio station being online here, hopefully in May, and we'll be looking forward to listening. So forget one last thing before we end. What can people out there listening in their community do for the veterans that they know?
I think the biggest thing that we get is a lot of people will want to just call and talk. If you focus more on just talking about the things that are happening currently, not necessarily trying to fix their problems, it helps take their mind off things.
All right.
Just be there to listen and talk about regular events or nonsense. and don't get wrapped up in trying to solve their issues.
That's awesome.
Thanks so much for your service. Thanks for what you're doing. You've been a phenomenal guest, and thanks for all the laughter.
Thanks, Don.
You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together with John Gallina and Brad Borders. Join us again next Tuesday at 8 a.m. and Saturday at 5 p.m. for Putting the Pieces Back Together on News Talk WSIC.